Your foes roar inside your meeting place. They take their signs for true signs. It is like men wielding axes against a gnarled tree. With hatchet and pike, they hacked away at its carved work. They made your sanctuary go up in flames. They brought low in dishonor the dwelling place of your presence. They resolved, let us destroy them altogether. They burned all of Hawa's tabernacles in the land. No signs appeared for us. There is no longer any prophet. No one among us knows for how long. Till when, O power, will the foe blaspheme? Will the enemy forever revile your name? Why do you hold back your hand, your right hand? Draw it out of your bosom. O power, my king from old, who brings deliverance throughout the land. It was you who drove back the sea with your might, who smashed the heads of the monsters in the waters. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan, who left him as food for the denizens of the desert. It was you who released springs and torrents, who made mighty rivers run dry. The day is yours, the night also. It was you who set in place the orb of the sun. You fixed all the boundaries of the earth, summer and winter. You made them. Be mindful of how the enemy blasphemes the Most High, how base people revile your name. Do not deliver your dove to the wild beast. Do not ignore forever the band of your lowly ones. Look to the covenant, for the dark places of the land are full of the haunts of lawlessness. Let not the downtrodden turn away disappointed. Let the poor and needy praise your name. Rise, O Hawa, champion your cause. Be mindful that you are blasphemed by base men all day long. Do not ignore the shouts of your foes, the din of your adversaries that ascends all time. Let's go. Episode number 38. The Most High is great. We're talking section 107 of the Copyright Act. Teaching, scholarship, and research. We do this. We ain't new to this. We true to this. Are we the dracons, the dragons found here in America? Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. You are now tapped in with Dragon Canoe. We are steadily rowing and we are constantly flowing. All praise to the Most High. Allah. A maskil of a soft. Maskil from 7919. Instructive. A didactic poem. Maskil. Sekel from 7919. Intelligence. Knowledge. Understanding. Wisdom. Success. Discretion. Policy. Prudence. Sense. Wisdom. Sakal. Have good success. Prosper. Expert. Circumspect. Intelligent. Teach. Understand. Wisdom. Behave. Self. Consider. To make wisely. Guide. Wittingly. A maskil of a soft. Understanding. Wisdom. We're going to jump right into it. Chicxulub crater in the Yucatan Peninsula. I want you to keep this in your mind. The Gulf of Mexico. United States, Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula. Chicxulub. As we have seen, cometary catastrophes have the ability to change the course of a civilization's history, even plunge it into a dark age. This must have happened before that time as well. Could it be that a cometary catastrophe destroyed civilizations that we do not know about? Are the pyramids themselves reminders of something in some place forgotten, deep in the distant past? Are the earliest pyramids in Peru, China, Mesopotamia, and Egypt the beginning point for all the pyramids that followed? Do they form the hub of pyramid building will in both the old and new worlds? Or are they themselves the spokes of a hub that lies even further back in an earlier time, lost to history? Let's go. Episode number 38. The Most High is great. We just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. Just following the drinking gourd, as I like to say. We're just following the drinking gourd. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Certain Maya and Aztec traditions held that a supreme creator exists behind the massed ranks of the gods with the little g. According to some Maya sources, the supreme god with the little g was Itzamna, lizard house. Itzamna, lizard house. Itzamna was often shown with crossed eyes. We're talking copper-colored Khans found here in America. Known also as Hunab Ku, only spirit, he was depicted as a great sky serpent or as an old man, and was believed to be patron of writing and divination. His consort was Ixchel, Lady Rainbow, goddess of childbirth, medicine, and weaving. Hunab Ku, aka Itzamna, aka Lizard House, aka Only Spirit. We got Ixchel, aka Lady Rainbow, goddess of childbirth, medicine, and weaving. The Maya god with the little g, Ixchel, aka Lady Rainbow, was often depicted as a clawed goddess with a writhing serpent on her head and embroidered crossbones on her skirt. Ixchel, aka Lady Rainbow. Following the end of the fourth sun or age in a great earthquake, Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl had to fashion the earth anew. They encountered the earth monster Tlaltecutli swimming in the waters of the great flood, and by tearing apart her body, they made a new sky and a new earth. We're talking Tezcatlipoca, Quetzalcoatl, and Tlaltecutli. They made a new sky and a new earth. Tezcatlipoca among storm deities. These questions are hardly new. The notion of a time before our own is a common element in the mythic inheritance of the Western world. In the Old Testament book of Genesis, the Garden of Eden represents the lost world. The ancient Egyptians told of the first times as Zep Tepi, an ancient epic when order and harmony prevailed and then sadly broke down. We're talking Zep Tepi, divine order, the waters above and the waters below, the sun's course, the people's work. Let's go. Zep Tepi, they say. Many claim to have found the real Atlantis. To date, dozens of locations in Europe and North Africa have been proposed as the site of the lost civilization. Even Eastern North America, Bermuda, and the Yucatan Peninsula, the Caribbean Sea, and Cuba. We're talking Chicxulub, the Yucatan Peninsula. Keep that in your mind. Chicxulub, we're talking Yucatan Peninsula. La Venta, Palenque, Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Tikal. They say this was the boundary of Mesoamerican cultural region, and this was what we would know to be the southwest of the United States, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, California. Some have suggested that Indonesia was the site not only of Atlantis, but also of the Garden of Eden, paradise, the Isle of Avalon, they say. So we got the South China Sea. Looks a lot like the Gulf of Mexico, according to this map of what they call Sundaland. Taiwan, China, Indochina, Malaya, Sumatra, Java, Sulawesi, Borneo, and they say Sundaland is this light gray area that submerged underwater. It does look a lot like the Gulf of Mexico. We're just connecting the dots, staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. A suggested body of evidence shows the significance of the period of sea level rise in the history of the Middle East. And lends credence to Oppenheimer's ideas comes from the work of Sir Charles Leonard Woolley and his archaeology, which uncovered the tombs of the dynasty I of Ur. Then Hoa said to him, I am Hoa, who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to assign this land to you as a possession. I am that I am, Hoa, who brought you from Ur. So again, we're talking Carter Marina. We're just connecting the dots. These old maps, La Florida, Mexico, La China, India, Catayo, Manji, India Superior, Tangu, Burma. Let's get it, man. What's really going on here? We're talking Chicxulub, the Yucatan Peninsula. Saying Woolley, he found copper. All traces of human habitation disappeared for 2,000 years under several yards of silt, a time when the sea was about the same level as it is today. Did Woolley again find signs of human habitation? A period of 2 millennia, no one could inhabit that land. Inhabitants of the area learned how to use copper and acquired the other skills that led to Ur's dynastic period. Did the people of Ur develop metal making and other attributes of civilization on their own, or were these skills imported from somewhere else, they say? Arguing that refugees from Southeast Asia sailed into the Middle East, much like the Shang Chinese in Mesoamerica. We're talking Levinta, Olmecs, the connection between the Shang Chinese and Mesoamerica. The difficulty of evaluating Oppenheimer's argument directly is the absence of obvious archaeological evidence, they say. We're talking Prester John and the Black, Catan, Katai, Catayo, Asia, Manji, Florida, America. Come on, we're talking Gulf of Mexico, South China Sea, Chicxulub, Rontius finds map 1531. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Can't make this up. The most intriguing evidence comes from Sundaland and the mythological traditions they carried with them. Understanding where those mythological stories came from and what they signify gives us a better handle on comprehending the meaning of pyramids from Uruk to Uxmal. Saying the widely known account of Noah in the Old Testament, book of Genesis, Noah is but one tale in a worldwide collection, they say. Talking Uxmal, Chicxulub, crater in the Yucatan Peninsula. We're talking meteors and dragons in the Gulf of Mexico. The story of Noah derives from a tradition of flood stories, including the legend of Utnapishtim, who, like Noah, escaped with his wife in a vessel filled with animals, and like the Greek Deucalion, warned about the flood in advance like Noah. Much like Noah, Deucalion landed on a mountain and sacrificed to Zeus, in the same way that Noah came ashore on Ararat and made an offering to Hoa. A flood plays a role in Genesis, one version of the biblical creation of the world. This beginning does not start from nothing. Now the earth was a formless void. There was darkness over the deep, and Hua's spirit hovered above the waters, hovered over the water. In advance of creating the sun, then divides the waters into two, those under the vault of heaven and those over it. talking Zep Tepi, the water under the vault of heaven and the water over the vault of heaven. And so it was. Hawa called the dry land earth and the mass of water seas. This account sounds less like an actual creation of the world than a recreation of its form after a devastating flood. In the later books of the Old Testament, the watery chaos of the first days is linked to a terrible serpent, often called Leviathan, as in the books of Isaiah and the Psalms. This marine dragon is a terrible and dangerous creature, one that can be overcome only with divine power. The creature appears again and again as a guardian of the underworld. In the Babylonian creation myth, the hero Marduk slays the water monster Tiamat. We're talking dragons and water monsters. In northern Australia, the indigenous people tell of a goddess who turned into a giant rainbow serpent. We're talking Chicxulub, aka Lady Rainbow, shades of Quetzalcoatl, and form the rivers, mountains, and lakes. Notably, many Native American myths begin like Genesis with a watery chaos, but they largely lack dragons. In Native American myths, they are called Thunderbirds and dragons, part of a single connected tradition. The connection between the legacy of the Sundalanders and the pyramid building cultures becomes even more emphatic if we expand our view to the New World, particularly Mesoamerica, the Yucatan Peninsula, from Uruk to Uxmal, Chicxulub. The link between Sundaland and Mesoamerica is almost certainly indirect, they say. The legacy of the sunken continent came to the Americas via China, they say. Talking Levinta, the connection between Mesoamerica and the South China Sea. Mythologies of Mesoamerica can be traced back to an origin in Southeast Asia. Consider the crocodile, which is possibly the Leviathan of Genesis, and the dragon of watery chaos. The Aztec Cipactli is unique as the only alligator deity in Mesoamerica. In certain of the Southeast Asian stories of the creation of the human race, a deity fashions the first man by mixing his or her own blood with clay. A remnant of this story occurs in Genesis. The name of Adam, who is made from dust in one of the biblical creation accounts, means red earth, copper, or blood-colored earth, copper-colored Khans. Likewise, as we saw in chapter 5, the Aztecs made images of their God with a little g by mixing their own blood with cornmeal, they say. The Aztecs trace their origin to the goddess Chicxulub, who also passed sin, suffering, and death into the world, they say. Commonly associated with a snake, Chicxulub sounds much like Eve in Genesis, who was made by Hawa from a rib taken out of Adam's side. Long before Christianity, Polynesians told how the first woman, Evie, whose name means bone and is pronounced phonetically the same as Eve, was made by the divine creator from a bone extracted from the first man's body. The serpent figures in an additional motif found in Mesoamerica. A body of myths from Southeast Asia connects a tree of life or immortality with a guardian serpent and a bird. A guardian serpent and a bird that perches in its branches. Readers who know the Old Testament will see an immediate connection to the story of Eve in the Garden of Eden, who was persuaded by a snake to taste of the forbidden tree. They also appear in Mesoamerica as well. The serpent and the bird are sometimes mixed, as in the figure of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, aka Kukulkan, associated with Tezcatlipoca, Quetzalcoatl. And then there are the Pleiades, the group of 7 stars from the Taurus constellation, with which the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan and the Aztec Pyramid of Tenayuca are aligned. Remember, we're just following the drinking gourd. The Pleiades were used extensively as navigational aids by many ancient cultures. The Australian Aboriginals tell a story of the origin of the Pleiades as 7 sisters. And also with the Greek myth of Orion, chasing after the maiden daughters of Atlas. The Egyptian Osiris are also associated with Orion. Edith Tolman, Alexander and Edith Tolman, geologists at the University of Vienna, have argued that a series of large oceanic impacts, talking Chicxulub, coupled with smaller land collisions in the middle of the 8th millennia, is the cause of the flood. Working from folkloric traditions, they even go so far as to date the impact precisely at 3 a.m. in Vienna's time zone on what would have been September 23rd. Greenland ice core data shows that something major did happen, a very strong acid layer which would indicate extreme volcanic or cometary activity. Chicxulub crater, Yucatan Peninsula. In addition, the radiocarbon content of ancient tree rings indicates some kind of major event. Working from evidence and folklore, the Tolmans argue that a comet with 7 large fragments struck the world's oceans, more or less simultaneously. Still, there are important gaps in the story. Records tell of the arrival of Old World immigrants in the New World and describe their influence among the locals. The closest such evidence is the arrival of the Veracochas, or the white-bearded gods with the little g, the Veracochas. Beyond that, there may be little to find. Since the European invasion in the late 15th and 16th centuries destroyed almost the entire legacy of Native American codices and records. So take that into mind. Since the European invasion in the late 15th and 16th centuries destroyed almost the entire legacy of Native American codices and records. In addition, except for the arrival of masses of Shang Chinese at La Venta, probably appeared in dribs and drabs, a boat here, a boat there. And they developed a complex culture. The absence of records is hardly unique in our reconstruction of history. For example, despite the abundance of histories and literature from the Mediterranean and the careful exploration of its archaeological sites, our knowledge of the ancient civilizations of the region remains incomplete. Consider the ancient Hebrews before the early and middle 1st millennia. We're talking the ancient Hebrews in Calais. If it weren't for the Bible, we would know remarkably little about them. The Old Testament names approximately 40 kings of Israel and Judah. The Hebrew kingdom was divided for 2 centuries. Yet, we can find references to only about a dozen of them in records other than the Hebrew scriptures. And almost all of these are from the time after Solomon. Somehow, personalities as outstanding as Saul, David, and Solomon, for whatever reason, we only have records of about 12. We're talking the books of the prophets, the book of the 12, the ancient Hebrews. Somehow, the arrival of the Hebrews in Egypt, their enslavement, and the Exodus never made it into Egyptian records. They say never made it into Egyptian records. Think about that. That is a surprising omission. given that by ancient standards, the Egyptians were a highly literate society whose scribes were meticulous and complete. Perhaps these events, so important in Hebrew mythology, caused little stir among the Egyptians. But remember, European invasion destroyed pretty much all Native American codices and records. Are you following here? Or perhaps the records that the Egyptians made have perished, possibly never to be found. Likewise, and hardly surprising, we lack written records documenting old world mariners landing in the New World. With that rise came the great pyramid building civilizations of the Old World. The Old World pyramid builders later did for the New World what the Sundalanders had done for them. They helped shape the sophisticated civilizations of Mesoamerica and the Andes. It is likely there is an even deeper unity. A genetic tree that follows the lines of the mitochondrial DNA shows that humans arise from 18 women, they say somewhere in Africa 144,000 years ago, and they finally reached the Americas, leaving their genetic footprints along the way, and they point to an original 10 men who are the forefathers of all modern humans, showing that all Europeans can be traced to 7 maternal groups. Not everybody, it says to all Europeans. Sykes calls them the 7 daughters of Eve, and he has given them the names Helena, Jasmine, Katrine, Tara, Ursula, Valda, and Sheena, and they are connected to the development of languages. It says it believes that the male chromosomal lineages are connected to the development of languages. When all spoke the same tongue and migrated into new lands, they say language inevitably changed and evolved. We're talking Tower of Babel, proposing that languages, as different as Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek, come from a common parent language. Linguists even assembled the families of these languages and grouped them into macro groups and linked them historically to a common ancestor back in time. And it points to the existence of an original tongue, saying, have developed more than 40 word roots they are certain indicate a connection among all the world's tongues and demonstrate the existence of a single language. As a simple example, consider the English word hole, which appears in French as coal, and the compound word cul-de-sac, and in German as hole or hell. Next coming the Kung, bush people of the Kalahari, or Koro, hole, the Finnish Kolo, hole, Korean Kol, cave, Japanese Kur, hollow, Tamil Akul, armpit, Tibetan Kor, hole, pit, and Caucasian Kur, pit. The appearance points to a point of origin in language and culture. What we see as difference is in fact a layer of distinction wrapped around a core of unity. Difference is the icing, unity the cake. The pyramids also have an important lesson to teach us about the influence of cometary activity on human history. We fail to understand how profound an effect the rain of cosmic fire and ice had on our forebears. Not so long ago, the peoples of the earth knew the skies as a source of great danger. Cosmic fire and ice, the peoples of the earth knew the skies as a source of great danger. We're talking Chicxulub. Look it up. The loss of the mandate of heaven and high cometary activity propelled the Shang toward Mesoamerica, with the Egyptian and African evidence at La Venta. Another movement from China during the Qian dynasty made a likely contribution to Teotihuacan. From there to many pyramids of the Maya region, we're talking Chicxulub, the Yucatan Peninsula, Uxmal, Chichen Itza, and to the great monuments of the Andes. In each case, the transoceanic movement of pyramid builders occurred because of the disruption of old world societies by events in the heavens. The pyramids themselves were a creative response to the danger in the skies, It was both an astronomical observatory that warned of the time of greatest danger and a bomb shelter that protected us against the barrage of the skies, cosmic ice, and fire. Newgrange, with its thick roof of sod covering corbelled stone, would also have offered excellent protection. But these monuments and the pyramids that followed them served as more than elaborate foxholes or fallout shelters, but represent attempts to understand the cosmos and to restore it to a right and safe order, in the same way that you and I want to comprehend through science what makes the universe tick. We're just following the drinking gourd, staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek, giving all praise to the Most High. We're trying to figure out what's going on here, man. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We out of here for this one. Episode number 38. The Most High is great.